Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of my MATLAB slash PsychToolbox guide. Today we will be talking about how to draw on your screen using anything from fill poly to draw formatted text. These are all just PsychToolbox functions. We're going to talk about what you need to know in order to do that. And yeah, let's just jump right into it. So these are pretty much all of the functions that you're going to be using in order to draw on your screen. They'll mostly come from the screen function, and then they'll have like an input that'll tell you what you really want to do with it. The only one that I really use to draw on the screen that isn't from the screen function is the draw formatted text function. I can show you a little bit on how to use that function, but it's pretty straightforward. You just type this function and then you type the string that you want to put, and then it just puts that string on the screen. And if you just look at the documentation, you can pretty easily figure out how to use most of this stuff. But I realized that for some of these drawing techniques, it's a little harder. When I first started learning how to do this stuff, it was really hard to kind of understand how to draw on the screen. So that's mostly what we're going to be talking about today. So this is a diagram that it represents really well how to think about drawing on your screen. So there's this variable that's all over the documentation called rect, R-E-C-T, and all that means is that it's a 1x4 matrix that has the XY coordinates that represent your screen, and that matrix is this thing right here. So the first two, the first one's going to be the X coordinate that represents the top left of your screen, so up here, and the next one is the Y coordinate that also represents the top left of your screen up here. So 0, 0 is actually the top left of your screen up here, and as you travel down this way, you are increasing your Y. So you're and same as X, as you travel to the right, you're increasing your X. So it's kind of weird. It's not like the standard grid where this is 0, 0, and then it goes up as you go up, and then it goes negative as you go down, and negative to the left and positive to the right. That would be a standard grid. They both start at 0, 0 at the top left. So this would be 0, 0, and then depending on how many or how big your monitor is, this would be like in this example, it's 1680, 1050. So your X would be 1680 and your Y would be 1050. But the screen still represents a coordinate grid system. So if I wanted the point 200, 200, I would start at 0, 0, and I would go X over 200 points. Let's say it's right here. And then I would say, okay, now where's Y 200? And I would travel down Y, and I'm traveling down because remember, Y increases as you go down. So if this is 200X and this is 200Y, then this would be 200, 200 as a coordinate. It takes a while, at least it took for me. Maybe this doesn't phase any of you, but it takes a while to kind of get used to the way that this is set up, and sometimes you're gonna have to translate what you want to do in weird ways because of the fact that the Y is kind of inverted, but this is really the biggest thing that this rect variable is the biggest thing that will help you learn how to use this, because we use this variable a lot to find the center of the screen. So for example, if you wanted to find the center of the screen, all you have to do is take the largest x value and divide that by 2. So if this is 0 and this is 1680, you just divide it by 2, and bam, you find the center of your screen on your x-axis. And then you just take the fourth one, which is your y. It's your largest y value, so it'd be all the way at the bottom of your screen. And then you just take that, divide it by 2. Yeah, I'm sorry. It would be along this axis here. So if this is like your largest y value and this is your smallest, if you just divide the largest one by 2, then your y would just be here. So now your y coordinate is here, or starts here, and your x coordinate is up here, so they would meet in the center. So I use these variables a lot to find like the center of the screen by dividing by 2, or finding like a perfect like left side of the screen by dividing by like 4. So you can use these really well is basically what I'm saying, and I'll show you how to do that here in a second. So let's try it. All right, so I just set up like this little environment for like practicing how to draw on your screen. You can like copy paste this. Maybe I should just like leave a copy of this in the comments section or in the files or whatever. But basically all I'm doing is I'm just like calling a window, and then I'll have like an area where I'll have like my settings. I'll have an area where I'm actually drawing my object, and then all I'm going to do is wait 3 seconds and close all the screens. So that'll just give me like a pretty good idea of like what exactly I just drew, and then I'll close the screen and I'll come back to here. And we'll do this a lot, so you'll see exactly how this code works. But if you don't know what's going on up here, I recommend going to my like second video. I think I like really cover in depth like what each one of these steps are doing in order to like pull up a screen. I think I kind of skip over this because it's not really important. I still don't super know what it does, but all I know is that if you're on a Mac, you need to have it. And I also didn't like talk about this. This is like something I just discovered. It's just like a command window function, and I just like always put it at the top of my scripts now, especially when I'm calling a new screen, because if you, let's say your cursor is in your script and then you run it, and you want to like Control C SCA out of your window, what you'll end up doing is like this, and then you'll just like you'll be typing into your script and not into your command window, and you won't be able to like quit out. So this function, all it does is just brings you to your command window automatically, so that you can always like Control C SCA out of it. And then it's always just good practice to clear CLC before your scripts start. So let's jump into the first function that I want to do. So a pretty simple one is called draw line. So actually, before I even go into that, I want to talk about this one function, screen function called screen rect. So this function will actually call the dimensions of your screen, and it'll give you that rect variable. So if you set the output to rect, you can set it to anything, but I always just put it as rect. And then you have to set your screen number, so I set mine to 0. But yeah, if you do this, rect should give you that 1x4 matrix of your x's and y's that represent the dimensions of your screen. So mine are a little bit different than the example in my PowerPoint, but this is basically like the basis of what we're going to be using for identifying like the center of the screen and stuff. So I use this a lot in order to get this matrix right here when I'm not like calling my window for whatever reason. But in this environment, when I open my window up here using this screen function, I'm going to get my out window dimensions as my second output for the screen function. So my screen function has two outputs. One is just like the out window, the drawing pad that I'm drawing on, and then the second output is the out window dimensions, which is literally just this rect variable. It's this 1x4 matrix. I'm just calling it out window dimensions up here. Maybe I'll just call it rect so that we're always staying consistent. So let's get into how to draw. So before we draw, let's define some settings. So I like to keep my code like really, really nice and neat, and I always set things to variables rather than hard coding my stuff. So, and I think it makes it easier for you guys to see what's going on. So let's define, so everything you draw, you're normally going to need like a color for it. I think they default colors to like black or something, but we're just going to call a color for our functions. So let's set our color to an RGB value. We'll just do everything in red so that it's like really obvious, like what we're doing. Or I guess we could do everything in white. I guess that's even more obvious. So if you don't know how to use RGB values and draw them and place them into a matrix like this, just Google it. It's like super simple. This is red. This is green. RGB. This is green. This is blue. So yeah, you can figure that out on your own. So we've got our color, and let's find like the center of our screen. So we'll call that our X and our Y. So for our X, the X is going to represent the center of our screen. So for the X, what we're going to do is we're going to index into this rect variable here. I'll show you how we're going to actually do this. So let's call that rect thing again. So this is the 1x4 matrix. So really all we're doing is when we index into it, we're just going to say like rect the first row, because there's only one row, and then like the third item. And so we're just going to be grabbing like the third and the fourth items in order to divide them to find like the center and stuff. So this is your X and this is your Y. It's pretty intuitive, like X, Y, X always comes first. So X is going to equal your rect 1, 3. So we're indexing to the third variable, which again is just this 144. And we're just going to take that number and we're just going to divide it by 2. So that X is now represented up right here, or I guess like down here, depending on what your Y is. But like it's in the center of this axis right here. So now let's find our Y center, rect 1, 4. I guess we could just do 3 and 4. Can't we? Yep. So we can just do 3 and 4. Because it's only one dimension long, so we can just identify the third and fourth items. So now we have our X and our Y. So our X is going to be 720. Our Y is going to be 450. So again, to reiterate, our X starts at 0 here. So 720 is going to be like right here. And then our Y starts at 0 up here. And so 450 would be like right here. So we found the center of our screen, and we've labeled them as X and Y. So, so I think for now that's good. We can always define more settings later, but that's pretty much all we need for now. So let's do the first thing. Well, first, always remember to just put screen flip and then your out window. I just forget to do that all the time, and then I'm wondering where my drawing is. So I just do that first. So screen flip, and then let's do screen draw line. So this is like a pretty easy function to use. And I'm just going to draw out exactly what it says in the documentation. Just so that, and then we can just like replace items as we input them. So they've got window, pointer, and then they've got color, and then they've got rect, and they've got, oh, no, they don't have rect. They have from H, from V, to H, to V, and then they've got pen width. So we can just talk about each one of these things as we go along, and I'll like explain what each one of these is going to do. But this is exactly how it looks in the documentation. So basically color, we already defined that up here. We just like don't need brackets, so we can just delete those. Oh, window pointer. So window pointer is just going to be your out window. That's the variable that you get from your open window. It's your drawing board, basically. So we can just replace that. And then what these variables right here are basically saying is, I don't know why they're using H and V, but I guess that's what they're using. Basically what they're saying though is, what is your first X point? What is your first Y point? What is your second X point? What is your second Y point? So you need, because we're drawing a line, right? So it needs to start at a point and then it needs to end at a point or like somewhere else. So, so all we're gonna do is we're just gonna draw, like in this whole portion, what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw a line from the center up 200 pixels, and we're going to draw another one from the center right 200 pixels, and then from the center down 200 pixels, from the center to the left 200 pixels. So the first thing that we need to do is we need our first X point, which our X and our Y will always, our first X and Y for this whole part will always be X and Y, because we defined that these as being the very center of our screen. So our first point will always be the center of our screen. So let's go up first. So, so our X is going to stay the same, right? Because our X is along this axis and it's in the center. So our X, if our point starts here and goes up, our X is not changing. So we're gonna leave our X as just X, and then 2V, if we're starting here and we're going up 200 pixels on our Y, we need to actually subtract 200 from the center of our Y. So the reason again for that is that this is 0, and then if this is like 900 or whatever, oops, if this is 0 and this is 900, then as we travel up, we're subtracting. We're going closer to 0. So we need to take our Y, and all we're going to do is Y minus 200. And that's just how we're going to write it. So now, pen width, I was just playing around with this before I started this video, but apparently pen width has a maximum value for draw line of 7. So you can't go higher than 7, it'll give you an error. That's the thickest line you can draw, so we're just going to put it at the thickest line. I guess we could define that, so let's define pen width up here. then let's use the variable. I just like to use variables. It's much cleaner, makes a lot more sense to me. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. All right, so let's run this and see what we get. We're going to PsychToolbox. Cool, so we got our line from the center up. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to draw a line. So since that started at the center and went up, that now we want to draw from the center and go to the right. So we're just going to take this, let's just copy paste it, and we know that we're going to draw 4 lines. So let's just copy this 4 times, and we're just going to be changing the x and y's. These first x, y's will always stay the same. Our first point will always be in the center of our screen, but these next ones will change. So for the second one, we want to start from the center, and we want to take our x and we want to increase our x by 200, because if this is 0 and this is whatever 1440, so I think we start at 720 and we want to increase our x by 200. So we'll do x plus 200, but our y is going to stay the same because we're staying along this original axis. We're not moving up or down, we're just moving horizontally. So now we want to draw from the center going down. So our x is going to stay the same because we're not moving along this horizontal axis, we're moving along the vertical axis. So what we want to do is we want to take our y, we want to increase it by 200. So before we subtracted 200, this time we're increasing it by 200. And then for the last one, we want to take our x, and we start at the center, and we want to subtract 200. We want to go to the left, so x minus 200, and y is going to stay the same because we are not moving up or down. We are staying along the x-axis. So if we run this, theoretically, we should get something that looks like a cross. Awesome. Okay, so everything was drawn from the center to out. We could draw from out to the center, but that just seems way more complicated to me. So we draw from the center out. This is like a really simple drawing. We can do more complicated stuff, so let's comment this out. And that is the extent of what I prepared for, so bear with me if the next part is a little bit slower. But I have used fill poly a lot, so let's use that and let's try and draw a square using fill poly. So one thing that I like to do before I actually start drawing the object with like x's and y's is I try and like identify properties of the object that I might need in order to like make drawing it easier. So like if I want to draw a square and I want 4 points that are from here, or that all come from the center, so the center, they all want to be in relation to the center of the screen. The lengths that I need are the length to the top of the square and the length to the right, because I'm not drawing from here to here. I'm not, if I want to draw relationally at least. This is how I like to draw my pictures because I really like doing things in relation to each other. I think it makes it a lot better and more universal. But if I want to draw from here to here, in order to translate my x's and y's there, I have to go up and then to the right. So I need those distances. You could just do like fill poly and then put in a bunch of like coordinates and hard code it and measure it all out, but that's that'll take you a lot more time, and it's much more like difficult, and it's a lot of trial and error. I'd highly recommend drawing things from some sort of like relational point. So my relational point is always like this x and y. So the center of my screen. So let's use fill poly and let's try and draw a square. So do screen, fill, poly, and if I'm correct, this is my out window, and then let's see, I've got my color, we'll just keep it at white, and then it's telling me that I have a point list. So we're just going to put in a variable called points, and we'll define that here in a second. And then our pen width. Oh no, that's a different function. Yeah, so there is no pen width. I was gonna say that'd be weird. Okay, so this is all we need for fill poly. Just the command, or the command input, the out window, the color, and then a matrix of points. So this points variable is like, it's similar to what we did here, but it's basically telling you that you can have as many XY points as you want. You can have as many vertices on this shape as you want, as long as you define them in your points matrix. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and define that point, or those points, up here in our settings. So we'll say points equals a matrix, and the way that this is formatted is that it'll always just be your x, comma, your y, and then a new line. And a new line is signified by the semicolon. And so like all of your xy points will look like this in the matrix, and then until you're done, you just do x comma y, and then the function will read out this matrix and plot points, starting here, connecting to this one, connecting to this one, connecting to this one, connecting to this one, and eventually back to this, back to your start. So it's kind of weird to do for the first time, but we'll walk you through it here. So before I start labeling my points, like I said, I want those lengths, those property lengths of the square. So I want to draw in relation to the center of the screen. I want to be able to draw up and to the right. So I need those two distances. So I always call these distances whenever I have them like a tree and a branch. So I always have my longer distance as the tree, and my branch is my shorter distance. So let's say we want our square to be like I don't know, like 10. Let's say it's 20 pixels in our height and width. So in order to do 20 pixels height and width, we need to divide that by 2 because we're starting from the center and going out, essentially like the radius of our square. So our tree would be 10, and our branch would be, oh gosh, would this be 5? I think. I guess. I'm not totally sure, but I guess we'll find out. I assume that it's just like half of whatever that is. Okay, yeah, it must be. So, so let's start drawing. So this 10 will represent the y offset, basically. So from the center up or the center down. Well, I guess not the y offset. It'll be just from the center to the edge of the square, and then the branch will represent the edge to the actual point. So let's just start doing it, and we'll kind of figure it out along the way. So our first x point is we'll take our x, and we need to add a tree to it. Correct? Yeah. So let's draw this top right point. So we need to do x plus a tree, so x over, so we're adding, and then we need to subtract a branch. Oh, well, I guess if this is a, it must be a, they're all the sides are going to be the same, so we're just only adding trees. So we'll add a tree here, and then we'll subtract a tree from the y. So we'll do x plus a tree, and then we'll do y minus a tree. And that'll be our first point. And then our second point will be from the center. We'll do x plus a tree, and then y plus a tree. So now we're getting this bottom right corner here. So we'll do x plus a tree, and then y plus a tree. Okay, and now we want to get this bottom left one. Keep in mind that as you're drawing, you need to kind of go like from one point around the shape to all the points that you hit along like that clockwise like motion around the shape. Like if you start in the top right, you have to go like here to here to here to here. Otherwise, if you like, I'm pretty sure if you just go from like here to here to here to here, you end up just like drawing a really weird shape. So yeah, you have to go like clockwise around the shape. So we drew the top right and the bottom right. So now let's draw the bottom left. So what we need to do is we need to subtract a tree from our x, and we need to add a tree for our y. So do x minus a tree, comma y plus a tree. And then we just need one more point. We're going to, again, just subtract from our x, subtract from the center, and subtract from our y. So we'll do x minus a tree and y minus a tree. This looks really funny with these trees in here, but this is kind of how I do it. I like having my variable like stored here. That way, if I want to like increase the size of my circle or of my square, I don't have to go through and like change each one of these individually. I can just like go over here and change it to like 8 or something. But yeah, so yeah, right. So theoretically, if we were to run this, it should draw a square, but things are always theoretical. Cool, it worked. So we got our square. So let's make it a little bigger. Let's do like 30. Awesome. So we get our square here. We can even like go really big. This is good. So see how easy that is. You can just manipulate this variable here, and you can do anything you want with that square. So the next thing I want to show you is that when you draw something this way, when you use these relational values and you use them in like variables, and let's say you want to put your square anywhere else on the screen, now that is like super easy because these x's and y's or this point system is all based on a relational value from the center of your square. So wherever you define the center of your square, these values will always be the same, like no matter where that center is of the square. And we define the center of our square over here on our x and our y. So now here I'll show you if let's say we want to put this square on the left side of our screen, so over here. Now all we have to do is, because we want to travel along the x-axis, so we go to our x variable and we divide it by 2 to find the center of our screen. But in order to go to the left, we just divide it by 4, and now it's on the left side of our screen. And so the reason for that is because our rect is something like 1440, I think. So we just take 1440 and divide it by 4, and we get 360. Let's say we want to put it on the right side of our screen. So we take this 360, and because now our screen is sort of divided into these 4 sections of like, this is 360, this is 720, this would be whatever that is, 720 plus 360, and then this would be the maximum value. So we can just take that 1440 that divided by 4, and we can just put that in parentheses, and then we can just multiply it by 3. And now we get it on the right side of our screen. So really it's pretty easy. Once you define your point list based on this like XY system, that's why I always do it this way, is because when you base it off of center point, when you base the rest of the points off of a center point and you don't like hard code it, you can really just do whatever you want with these X's and Y's. And all you have to do now to manipulate this square is change like these little things here in the settings, which make it really easy to manipulate these shapes. So that's why I always draw it that way. I mean, feel free to do it however you like. But yeah, so let's see, is there anything else I really want to show you how to use? There's like other things that you can do, like you could do, like say you wanted to draw like a circle. You can, here, let me see if I can find frame fill. Let's try and draw a circle. So we need a point list in order to draw a circle. Ugh. I wish they made this easier. I know that there's one function, because I just used it a lot, where I think it's like draw circle or something. But it's pretty easy. You just like input the XY coordinates of your circle, and then you define your radius, and then it draws a circle there. I'm not gonna waste your time looking for it right now. But I guess the last thing I could just like quickly show you how to use is if anybody's still wondering how to use draw formatted text. It's like super simple to use. All you do is so you grab the function, which is called draw formatted text, and then the inputs are your out window, and then you put in the string that you want. So we could just do like a hello world, and then the next things are, you can define the points that your thing shows up at, or you can just put in a string called center, and if you do that, that's your XY coordinates of your center. So it's basically, all it's doing is like, this is this x, and this is this y. And so it's just centering it along the x and y axes. So they were just like smart, and they knew that that was probably something that people were going to want to do. And then, I forget what the last thing is. I think it's just color. We can just like put in our color. Yeah, let's just run this, see what happens. Yep, so you just get hello world in the center of our screen. You can change like the size of what you draw, but that's like, that uses a different function. One thing people commonly do, instead of like drawing a cross with like that function draw line, they'll just use draw formatted text, and they'll just use the plus sign, and then they'll just make their font like really big. I know I just did this in like something I just wrote, but yeah, that's a really common way of like just drawing a cross, or like a fixation cross or something. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. I know that like getting used to this whole point system thing is kind of awkward at first because of like the inverted y and stuff, but just practice. Let me know if you have questions in the comments, and yeah, have a good day.